Hi, my name is Simon Hedley, known to my clients and partners as a strategic alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Hello, I'm Simon Hedley, and welcome to today's episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. Today I'm joined by the one and only Nick Feeney. Not only is he a founder of many businesses, he's a life coach and mentor, and that is just the start of this incredible man. And so without further ado, Nick, welcome to Pause, Stop, Reset.
Simon, I've been looking forward to doing this with you ever since we started our conversation. So let's get going.
And me too, because I've been you're one of the people I bumped into online, right? And I watched your stuff, interacted with it, not really knowing who you were. And I just watched how you showed up. And I was really clear that who you're being is somebody that needs to be known differently and known out there. And also heard more about your real journey that brought you to where you're at today. So let's begin at the beginning. For those people that may not know you yet, hadn't cut up with your resets, who are you and what are you focused on today?
Okay, so you've obviously said my name, Nick Feeney, and I currently am really focused on helping men create a better middle life story than the one they're currently living. And how I got into that is because in my 30s, I crashed through midlife and my world imploded. And at the time, I thought it was just me. It was unique to me. I lost everything. I got divorced, burnt out, had a heart condition, got told I needed a pacemaker, lost all my money, lost my business, all of it. And as I went through my own sort of therapy and counseling in helping me put everything back together, through the conversations that I was having, I was realizing it wasn't just me. It was pretty much every man I knew that was taking the same sort of body blows that life gives you when you're striving for success, whatever that success is for you. And then I just realized that by paying forward what I learned, what the therapist had given me, what the coach had taught me, that actually it filled my cup. And so I trained in being able to turn my mess into my message and help people going through midlife, mainly men, but I also do this with women in my wife's coaching business. So I can save them the pain and the cost physically, financially, emotionally, mentally. And what I love is more and more men are actually coming to me because they can see the cracks. They're not waiting for the cracks to get bigger. And that I think has been a massive change in where we are in society. But yes, that's who I am. That's what I'm working on, and that's who I help.
I love it. And yeah, it's so true. There's a lot of sort of energy in the 20s and 30s of go build. A lot of that world of development, of NLP, of coaching has gone out there. But this sort of wave of, and I'm 45 recently, Nick, this wave of sort of midlife journey where you realize everything you thought isn't what you thought it was. And you're also not dead yet. And like, what's happening now? And suddenly there's this gap in the market where, being hyper motivated is great, but it doesn't actually solve. And I think so much of the old world has gone away, right? That warrior training, that tribal wisdom in this sort of hyper world we live in today, which none of us really predicted a few decades ago. So I love that. And you mentioned your partner, Andrea, right? I'm guessing that's been a big part of your reset journey, working with her and with you built out these amazing businesses, helping so many people, women and men going through this new coaching journey.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, it was helping Andrea build her part of the business and which stemmed from her story, that made both of us actually want to formalize what we did. And I mean that with then formalizing it with the proper training, because I've had lots of businesses. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16. And I've always, like I said, loved just learning stuff and paying it forward. So I've been a business coach to people, officially and unofficially, for many, many years. So the coaching comes very naturally to me. But it was through building Andrea's platform and story and sharing that and helping her community that made me realize that, okay, this is great. I'm helping lots and lots of females, but I know that there's lots of men out there that can benefit from what I know and how I can help them. But yeah, it was definitely the catalyst, I think, to sort of really making it my thing.
Awesome. So one of the things we look at here are these sort of shifts and resets you've been through. And if you look back on your life, you already touched on a few there. What have been the biggest shifts and resets you've navigated?
Well, I would definitely say when my life imploded was the biggest reset, because not only was it losing all those material things and it impacting my health, but actually what really, really probably had the biggest impact was losing my identity. I had been this guy my entire adult life, even before that, plotting what success looked like as a young child and going through that and putting all that into practice. And then just before my 40th birthday was when I walked out of my first marriage after 23 years. And I realized that I was going to be giving everything I ever had been known in my adult life up. And that, whilst I knew it's the right thing because I was turning into a guy that wasn't great, I didn't realize how difficult that would have been to deal with. The grief actually around it of losing who you were and where you sat in life, what was next, all those questions. And so that for me, I knew from that day I had to take responsibility for who I was and certainly who I wasn't. And that's why I reached out to a therapist and a coach at that time, because I knew I just didn't know. I just didn't know. I didn't even know what questions to ask or who to ask. But thankfully, and I was telling this story the other day, someone pointed me in a direction of a particular lady, Karen, her name is, who's incredible. And as someone that helps men after divorce. And I thought, okay, well, that sounds brilliant. I didn't know she was a therapist at the time. And someone said to me, would you have gone if you'd known? And I went, I don't know. Is the honest answer. But I did go. And I went every week for 2.5 years. And she was incredible. She was amazing. And that helped me massively get to grips with that entire reset of my life. Let me understand who I was, but also gave me the space to work things out as well, if that makes sense.
It does very much so. And we may get back to it later on in the show. This whole thing between therapy, counseling, consulting, coaching, mentoring, listening, there's a whole gamut and space that tend to overlap. And what I'm loving is you found somebody that resonated with you and worked for you, right? And often it is that. And like how you said it, you don't even know what questions to ask. It's not that you go, I have the cutting plan, I want a pizza. That's easy. It's like, I don't actually know what I don't know. Everybody says now, it's like common languaging, but you don't. It's like, I don't actually know what happened now because it wasn't the story and it wasn't the bit. And honestly, that space to actually think it through, it is so rare because it can take time. You built you up for 20 years, 30, 40 years, and now you've got to build a new you, and it doesn't happen overnight. And also the whole reset bit, not going back into who you were. So I loved how you shared that, and it's 100% understood, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It's part of what I think allows us to, have a different empathy with who we are in the world today.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing is as well, with what you just said there is people forget that you've taken that many years to become that person. And all those habits, good and bad, all those behaviors, good and bad, the way you think, good and bad, that took time to build up to that. So to then change it all takes time. But most people look for a quick fix. And unfortunately, with quick fixes, the way I put it, you get quick fails because you very quickly resort back to who you were and how you were. So I think it's important to be kind to ourselves and allow ourselves that time and space to reset.
And I'm curious because I like to distinguish these three things, right? Of pausing, stopping, and resetting. And they sound really simple. That pause when you sort of take a breath and then go back to things. You know, you're watching the movie, you pause it and then you carry on. Stopping, you like stop it and then you walk away. And reset, where you go, here's a whole new game. You know, you go from watching a movie to running outside or something else. Which of those is hardest for you, and why do you think that is or was?
I think that's a great question. And I would say the hardest thing for me is stopping. I'm really, really good at pausing. I mean, I look after myself. And obviously, if I need to do a long day or a long week, it is what it is. But I also make sure that my base level of health, fitness, everything that works for me is looked after. But it's the stopping. I find it difficult to stop. And recently, Andrea and I were aware that we were, instead of working from home, we were now living at work. And weekends didn't mean anything. And because we work on a few businesses together, we were just constantly talking about work. And we had to put some new rules in place. We had to remind ourselves that we were husband and wife before anything. And that took a while for me to get into that just stopping. But that was something that we had to do recently. And you know what? After a few weeks of me getting the hang of it, and also both of us going, hey, putting our hand up, we're not talking about work. Oh, okay then. Yeah, it works. But that's definitely one thing I find the hardest.
One of our sneaky things was actually literally turning the phones fully off for a weekend. And it's revelatory, like literally leave the iPhone behind and walk away.
Do you know what's so funny, Simon? I have no trouble with my phone. I can put my phone, I can leave it. Doesn't bother me, my phone.
Right.
It's my brain and talking.
Yeah.
That's where I don't stop.
No, I'm fully with you. This whole thing, you say living at work. In the old day, you go to the office, you come home. That's what you do, right? When you work for yourself, there's always that going on, and it's exciting in this global world. And it's a really good awareness to have about yourself, especially where you start choosing how you live compared to being like lived by the life you chose. If that lands a little bit, does that make sense?
No, beautiful, nice.
I'm really enjoying this, Nick. This is what I hoped when I reached out, and hopefully for listening, you get a sense of Nick's living this stuff from a lived experience. He didn't read a book about this. This is a human being. Like, we're all human.
I could write a book about it.
No one will read them. They never do. So one of the things, it's a classic question, right? Is what's the important lesson you wish you could give your younger self, and why? Like, if you I'm now 45. The stuff I didn't even know I didn't know as a young teenager, as a young kid, as a young adult, even 5 years ago. Like, what's the stuff you wish you knew years ago? What's that sort of the biggest Nick lessons you wish you give the younger Nick?
I would like to have known. I would like to have been more self-aware, and I don't just mean like, am I being kind to myself and things like that. I'm on more about the impact that I have on other people, my behaviors, the ripple effect. Aware of oneself, I call it. I think it's a deeper level, because you can, like, I'm self-aware in this podcast with you that not to say certain things or don't swear and things, and I think that's a sort of surface level. But aware of oneself, of what I say and the impact, good and bad, that can have on people. I think that is something that I would love to have known younger. And I think definitely as young men, we all grow up, and we're little boys. We're either little buggers or whatever. There's levels of that. And I just think I would like to have been more aware of myself and the impact I had.
And we're also living at a really interesting time, right? You and I differently, the 80s, 90s, 2000s, very different world about what was acceptable, okay, even explorable. Fascinating. It's like if some of the stuff that people now take as standard and normal and, average behavior, if you did that when we were growing up, you'd have real problems. So it's a really interesting time about what is nature nurture, what's really us, what's how to reconnect with who you really are, not that peer pressure or societal pressure or entertainment marketing, if you know what I mean by that.
I think we've certainly had to move at a faster pace. I know you've mentioned you're 45. I'm 50, and we've had to move at a faster pace, certainly over the last sort of 15, 20 years. And our children are obviously living in it, but we have far more reference points than what they do. And I think that's a worry.
What do you mean by reference points, Nick? Sorry.
So, like you said, the changes in the 80s, the 90s, the noughties,
got it.
How society changed. We've lived through that. And I don't mean they need to live 50 years and then they will also have these reference points, because things change so quickly. And I just think we had time for things to become, okay, that's a bit weird. Oh, no, it's not. All right. Okay, I see that. Oh, it's normal now. We had that time to do it. Whereas in today's world, what may be right today will be terribly wrong tomorrow. And that happens not on one thing, but several things. And I think it's very difficult for everybody to keep up with that. And it puts a lot of pressure on everybody. So I think we got the better part of the deal because we were given that space. And that's something that they don't have right now.
Really nicely said. Yeah, 100%. I've got friends with kids, and I'm sure you've got kids and friends with kids, and that age, they're like 5 to 10, 12 right now. And really unclear how to best help them step into being great adults, right? We all get the basics of learning skills, but where they should prioritize, what would be useful. It's a great video. Have you seen the one about the jobs that the kids will have don't even exist yet? You heard that?
Yes.
And I love that the time to actually learn, explore, and grow seems to be much more condensed. So
definitely,
one of the ways I used my time growing up was reading book, watching movies. That was my learning, my exploratory space. Before the metaverse, I was in that computer brain we have ourselves. Are there any books or movies that have really helped you pause, stop, reset, that have changed your life, and how have they impacted you?
I would go for a book, actually. And it would be The One Thing by Gary Keller. As someone that loves spinning countless plates, it just really helped me with my focus. And it's a book that I've read, I don't know, more times than any other book. And it's on my sideboard over there. I'll read it again this year, because I just thought the way it's simplified how we can focus on the one thing, rather than doing too many things. That to me is something that I try and really, really stick with, to keep things simple. So that's had the biggest impact on me. Have you heard of that book?
I have not read it, but I have heard about it.
Right.
Laughing and torturing myself, because my whole thing was the simple idea. I built the Prioritize app. I'm all about priority simplification. And yet I look at myself with this tangle web of life I've created with technology and stuff and projects. It's like, this wasn't the plan. It's so hard to go, where's the one place to focus? And you and I, we've been around a bit. Those people that did pick, or seemingly picked one thing and did 10 years at it, make massive traction.
Yes.
It's a fascinating bit where, small steps, what can build up. And equally, sometimes you need to pivot, you need to reset. Something VHS tapes, it's time to change your business model, probably, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We see vinyl record shops resurfacing. It's like, how did that come back? So it's a fascinating space. No, I love that. The one thing, the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, I think it is.
That's the one. Yeah.
I love that book. And I love books. I love that you recommend. I love that you reread it. One of the top tips I found is to go back and reread books, to rewatch those things, because you see things the second, third time around you don't get the first time, and it's living content, not. And it's slightly cheesy in our industry. Shelf development. People go buy the books, never read them, put them on the shelf. That's not the plan. Love that recommendation there. Go ahead, Tony.
I think also people read books and look at it like a to-do list. Right, read that, next. Read that, next. Read that. And they don't apply it. And they just become well-read people. I normally swear there, well-read people.
Yeah. I used to hate it in New York. They had these cliched work wars. People would start bouncing, and as Brian Tracy says, as Zig Ziglar says, it's yeah, I got it. I've met him. Just chill. What actually is real? And I think it's part of, I think, the danger today, by the way, in this hyper marketing world, where the person with 1 million followers is seeming to know what they're talking about, but actually not necessarily. So that's why, again, this coach mentor stuff, I think that you've been building out, and I think that you value, and we all value, real lived experience, taking that body of work and putting it into. And actually, true fun story for you. Have you ever seen the TED talk about if you really want to help, you have to listen?
I've seen a few about listening, but
Ernesto Cirelli, right? I finally reached out to the guy. It's like, I had that moment, what? I actually talked to the guy who did that video, and he's really lovely like you are. And you just sort of go, I think often people forget the people that write books and create these documentaries are real people. But such understanding like you have of lived experience, it makes all the difference. And a really good recommendation. The one thing, the surprising, simple truth behind extraordinary results. Now, we've touched on that big reset you went through, your implosion, as you called it. Sorry. I'm just curious, when you went through that and other resets you've been through, what helped you through, right? How did you navigate what we call the dark night of the soul? How did you get through those challenging resets? And they can be great things happening, by the way. You can win the lottery. That's a reset. It can be good. How did you navigate it? What sort of got you through?
Well, mine wasn't winning the lottery. So it was, the thing with me is when I went through what I went through, I remember at one point, Karen, my therapist, saying to me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then she goes, No. Are you okay? And I'm like, well, oh no, I'm fine. And she said, there are people that come to me with one or two things that you've got loads of things going on, and I'm seriously worried about your mental health. And I said, oh no, I would never do that. And yes, it has entered my mind, but I would never take my own life. I have two beautiful girls. I know that this is my now, it's not my forever. So I'm all good. I will do whatever it takes to get me from here to where I want to go. And I knew, so I stopped drinking. At the time, I'd been hiding through drugs as well. So I cleaned myself up, got lots of sleep and exercised. And one thing that, and I still do it today, is I have amazing self-discipline and I am consistent. And that compounding is what helped me back then. It helps me today. I used to do loads of martial arts, and I think I got it from there.
Nice.
And that I would recommend to anyone. I just spoke to a friend yesterday who's going through, he owns a very, very, very large company, and he's going through some stressy times. And I coached him last year, and some of that stuff that I talked him through, he's not doing anymore. And I'm like, look, just do some base stuff, base level stuff. You don't have to go, okay, I can't exercise because I don't have 45 minutes. You got 2 minutes a day, every day. And I've given him some little exercises that he can do, and some little, I'm a big fan of micro habits. And that's what I've given him. And it's those things that I do, no matter how busy I am, my micro habits around health, exercise, and I am consistent with them without fail.
I'm just curious, which martial arts was it you went down? Were you a karate guy, taekwondo, judo, tai chi? What was your martial art background?
Almost all of them. So I started judo when in my early teens, and my master was a blind guy. He was just incredible, and that just blew my mind what he could do. Then I went on to karate, Kyokushinkai, and then I went on to taekwondo, and then I did a little bit of kickboxing.
I love it. You're a tall man. I ended up going back to the Tai Chi world as a short monkey. So that was I got very clear. The 6'5", 18 stone guy will probably win at judo against me. It's okay. It's funny. The biggest thing I miss is having that play experience in martial arts, right? With Tai Chi, you play Tai Chi, if that makes sense. Full on martial art, but it's not like go do 5-minute rounds. And that interaction regularly is such a great thing. And it's so easy to do, easy not to do. So micro habits, they're great insight. And I love that you've got that self-resilience, that nudging. Often I think when people really hit rock bottom, it's the bit that goes away. We don't get up and make our own bed. We don't go for the walks. And when the health goes out, which does happen as we get older, it's really challenging to restart those systems. Those injuries you used to bounce off from a kid. As you get older, you don't tend to bounce as much. You know what I mean by that? Like before you'd have thought a little sprain, now it's 3 months in a cast. It's like, okay, it's a bit longer to build, and that patience is so valuable.
Do again, this is one of the things that I talk about with one of my programs is how the average guy, if you're an average guy in the UK and the US today, you are literally killing yourself with your habits. How you are living your life is you are greatly reducing the quality and the length of your life. And one of the things I talk about is that you're that out of shape, you can't even touch your toes. Now, if you can't balance on certain things, as in lift your leg up and put your socks on and put your shoes on in your 40s, how do you think you're going to do that in your 50s? How are you going to do that in your 60s? And this is the thing. Then they go, oh, I can barely stand up. So in my 60s, I'm going to go and exercise. Well, whilst you can start at any age, wouldn't it be easier if you started now? And this is the thing that I encourage people to do. You don't have to go and smash the gym, but you have to do stuff like Tai Chi, like yoga, like things that will help you with your balance. Because as you get older, your muscles reduce every year from the age of 30. And then obviously your balance and everything else goes. And it's like, if you don't look after those simple things, the compounding of you not doing that good habit, that micro habit, can have the biggest impact on your life. It's just, you don't have to do loads, just do some.
It's pretty interesting. I'm just curious, actually, given your breadth of experiences, other cultures from Africa to South America to Asia, they tend to have this community exercise stuff, right? They're really good at doing Tai Chi in the park together, dancing. We don't really have that in the UK. Yes, there was Morris dancing. I don't think that was really the thing. Did we ever have that? Like in your chart, was there sort of community activities apart from walking the dog? But I don't think we really have that in the UK, right? That balancing as a community thing historically.
Well, when I was super young, there were still some dance halls. So there was some funky dancing and that, and also with my daughters when they were growing up, a lot of the adults would get involved with the dancing, but then it became more and more awkward as we got older, and it became less and less of a thing.
It became nightclub, right? It was the drinking thing.
Yes,
I just love salsa in Leicester Square, and that old amazing dance hall. It closed because we'd always to go there and dance and drink water, which doesn't make any money for the venue, right? So, yeah, that's interesting. So go ahead, sorry, I didn't mean to stop you.
Well, no, I was just going to say the value of community. Those cultures that you spoke about. That in itself, it's not just the act that they're doing; it's who they're doing with it, the social element, how that makes you feel in yourself, and being part. we often reference that, we used to live in tribes and how important it was to live in that tribe, because if you got kicked out, you'd be alone and you would die. And it's the same thing. It's just the world just looks different. But it's so important that we do all these things, but we do them in communities. And whether that's a small community like your family unit or your neighbours, or you go to bigger things like the Salsa in Leicester Square. Myself and Andrea did salsa dancing lessons in Richmond, and that was amazing. There was about 80 people there, and then unfortunately COVID came, and the place ended up closing down. So, but yeah, it's so good. It's so, whether you're good or bad at it, it's just brilliant. It fills your cup.
And I'm going to go a bit deeper. We got time to go a bit deep for a second, Nick?
How deep are we going?
Not that deep for Thursday. One of the things, given who I think you've been coaching and obviously your experiences and where you come from, I'm just really curious. One of the things I've not had to deal with in helping other people that much, but starting to see it happen more and more, is relationship breakdowns where they're suddenly changing location. So the partner, maybe they were married in, I don't know, pick your county in the UK, they separate, or amicably even, but now they've met new partners that are half an hour, 2, 3 hours away, let alone different countries. Mm-hmm. And that bit of how to be there when you go through it, given who you coach, right? The middle-aged men, sorry. There's often that aspect, right, of relationship breakup or transformations, where in the old days, we'd all live in the same town, we live in the same county, but people do now travel a lot more. So just curious, before we go, Rastus, with what you've been through personally and that side, any insights or tips? Because that, I think, is one of the most crushing things for the man, because generally the kids go with mum, right? That's how that works in the UK and some places.
Well, I can speak from experience on this, because my children, when I separated from my wife, they lived in Eastbourne and I moved to Brighton. So it wasn't too far away, but it was, anywhere between a sort of 30 and 40 minute car ride. And then I ended up moving to Surrey, which is an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And whilst I had the children every other weekend and every half of half term, I would drive down. So it's 166 miles round trip. I would drive down every Wednesday just to take them out for dinner. And I do speak to certain people who I've coached who say, oh yeah, well, they're 45 minutes away, and then because of this and because of that. And it's like anything. How much do you want it? Because if you want that, if you want to see your children, if you want to be an active part in their life, right, you can make it happen. We just have to look at how you're prioritizing other stuff over this and what we can do to switch that. So I think it does come down to an attitude. I know someone, for example, who, and I haven't coached him, but he's a friend of mine, who drives from Eastbourne to Birmingham. So just for anyone that doesn't know that, it's about 5-6 hours each way just to see his daughter and to take her out to tea. So there are men that will do whatever it takes to be present in their children's lives. And there are men that will quite happily hide behind an excuse and not be present. So I aim to steer my men that I coach towards being better dads. My whole goal is being a better man, better dad, better husband, better partner, better person to be around. So I wouldn't work with anyone that thought that a 45-minute journey was a good enough reason not to see their children.
Oh, 100%. I get that. And we'll talk offline about a few other bits, but 100%, yeah, I get where you're coming from and fully agree. And it is one of those choices, right? It becomes a choice about how you prioritize it and how you can handle it. And hopefully, people out there listening get some inspiration to create some more abundance and flow so they can afford to take that time to do that. And I think a lot of people who never have earned more than the bare minimum financially and have their life working in that way, often you get stuck in that sort of that routine and drudgery, if that makes sense. You can't actually take the time out or invest it if you want to sometimes. But it is excuses, not excuses, but it is sometimes a situation in the future. It doesn't have to be your past. So a great recommendation there to choose clearly and prioritize. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm just curious, what's the biggest takeaway you want people to sort of have from having listened to you today?
I would like them to take away that they have a lot more control as to who they are, where they are, and how they are in their life than they possibly feel they may have right now. But I would also caveat that with focus on your output, not the outcome. Too many people focus on what they're trying to do, how they're trying to do it, who they're trying to do it with. And most of that requires someone else or other things to line up, which you have no control over. So look at the things that you have control over, be honest with yourself, and focus on your energy towards those things, as in the output, not the outcome. So, for example, someone I coached recently, they're looking at writing a book. Now, you can put the end result to anything that you're trying to achieve in life. And they were like, right, I need to write X amount of chapters in 2 weeks. And I said to them, but you are setting yourself up to fail with that, because you don't know if you're going to get writer's block, if you're going to be creative enough. I mean, you might write 5 chapters and they might be rubbish if that's your goal. But why don't you actually focus on your output and focus that, let's just say you can do 5 hours a day of writing. And whatever happens from those 5 hours a day over the next couple of weeks, so each day you do 5 hours, is your outcome. And I think that's it. People get too caught up with what they're trying to achieve. They don't look at what they're trying to do and how they do it. And they try and control things that actually are way outside of their control. Or, as I say, are impacted by other people or other things. So look at what you can control. You can control more about yourself, how you feel, think, and act about it. But focus on the energy that you put into those things, not what you're trying to achieve.
Love it. And thank you for reframing that and clarifying. Yeah, there is that aspect. There's only so much that you can do. One of our clients, they've been like waiting for this client to come back for like 3 months. And it was like, what's going on? And it was nothing to do with them. It was things that the person was dealing with their family. And that happens, right? Sometimes life happens to the people you work with, your collaborators, your partners, your suppliers, and there's so much you can do. You and I have lived through DNS going down on the internet and everything's offline. Nothing you can do. The big power cuts. Like it's fascinating. And finding the ways to sort of enjoy each day is so important. One thing I love to do, because obviously, people I don't know, and it's a magical world sometimes. Are there any people that you think would be amazing guests and you'd love to listen to what they'd have to say to these questions?
I think there could be lots and lots of people. People that, if I said their name, actually, they wouldn't mean anything to you, but I would love to listen to them and what they would say. But if I said a name that maybe you and your listeners might recognise, I think Ant Middleton, because I don't think he ever stops.
Really interesting. Yeah. He's a really interesting character.
Yeah, but
the friends have. And he's done some incredible stuff, right? Not just in the old day job, but with the other side of it and a mindset. Very interesting guy.
He's very interesting. And, but I would imagine he is incredible at resetting, especially from his military experiences when things just didn't go right. And then you go, right, that was plan A, that's gone out the window. Or, okay, the equipment's not here. We just have to do this. So I would love to know his take on resetting and any sort of 2 or 3 tips that he uses every day to, if he's got that situation in front of him, what he would do. That would be amazing. And does he stop?
Never. Universal Soldier, right? Those who watch those movies. And
yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating. You mentioned that one of the people that sort of helped me on my journey, I didn't know for 16 years he was in that world. But it explains a lot about his mentality. And it is that, right? How we got doesn't matter. We're here now. Where are we going next? And they're so good at being present when crazy stuff's going on. Incredible guy. You'd never know who he was. That's the way of that world. But no, so valuable. And some of what brings to this simple idea of pause, stop, reset comes from my work with special forces guy, banking guys, other bits. And it is the ability to go, right, reset, move forward again and again and again when it can be really bad stuff that goes on.
Definitely. I think it's their ability to be faced with a problem and not spend too much time dwelling on that problem, but look for the solution. And that's something I'm really, really good at with business. Something happens. Yes, it's annoying. Yes, it's disappointing, frustrating, and a few other F words in there. But don't dwell on it. What can you do about it? And I would imagine they are elite in that.
Yeah. And actually also part of why this work's so important, sad that the people that worked in that environment, we're talking about special forces people here, like in America, in the UK and around the world, it's when they leave that environment and they no longer have some of that brotherhood, that support, that structure, and that ability to do, we call it whatever it takes, suddenly you're entering a different environment, right? And it isn't quite so easy. You know, that's where it's a fascinating bit of community and tribe and lifestyle. And also, you know, when you're 20, different when you're 45 and 50. And also those people we don't know the names of, love to interview them for you. That's what we love to do. And this is part of the game, right? Getting the stories out there from those people that have these experiences so we can help others.
Well, I'm sure we'll have lots of conversations once this podcast is finished, and I'll share some of those names.
Look forward to it. And Ant, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on the show. So one thing I know, Nick, people listening in are going to want to get connected with you. What's the best way for them to reach out and do that?
Well, I'm on Instagram a lot under Nick Feeney Coach. So you can look me up there, or you can just go and check out my website, which is thisguyisonfire.com.
I'm just curious, why was it This Guy Was on Fire? Was that from the song? What was about being fire that had you, was it the passion of that in the naming?
No, it's not even that sexy, I'm afraid. It's my wife's business is called This Girl Is on Fire, and it seemed a very natural thing to call myself This Guy Is on Fire. That said, I do have a bit of a catchphrase where I say from burnt out to on fire. So there you go.
Yeah, and we'll introduce to Sarah at some point. Her whole thing is being a phoenix, and she's fabulous at this reset. And this whole thing being lit up by life is such an important aspect today, I think, in a time where we need it, right? We're going through very challenging times with Turkey, with other things that are going on out there. But Nick, I've really enjoyed having you on the show. This is the start, hopefully, of a longer conversation relationship with Nick and the work he does for those of you listening in. It's been a great joy to have you today on Pause Stop Reset. I really appreciate you being with us, sharing what you have, and these reminders about, micro habits, this compounding effect, focusing on those things that you can control, and that one thing, such a valuable thing. Remember of that. Is there anything else you want to leave us with, Nick, for today?
No, Simon, I just want to thank you for giving me this space and use of your platform, and I really appreciate you in doing that for me. Thank you.
And if you're listening in, do check out Nick and what he's up to. If you're a lady, check out Andrea and Nick. But also, we're in a world of collaboration and connection. So on the portal, we'll share some resources so you can get access to Nick and his world. Nick, absolute pleasure. And we'll see you guys next time for Pause, Stop, Reset. Once again, I'm Simon Hedley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value, and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pause.reset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.